Yes, she said it.
All right, let's
So
do
welcome
this.
all. Yes, welcome all to the career talks, career guidance sessions that we have been having from the last couple of weeks. Today we have with us Phalgun. I would give you a quick introduction about him, but maybe you'll guess it by seeing his background already. Phalgun is an entrepreneur. He is also a pioneer in designing tabletop board games, and is uh, the magic of board games. You have, I mean, a lot of you might have played board games, but there is a huge world out there, which is something that is beyond what we know. And Colin kind of leads the space with a lot of games, making India proud, making Bangalore proud because their company is based in Bangalore, and he's got Mosaic Games and Board Games Bazaar that is there in it's one right, Basveshwar Nagar, right? And they have a lot going on. He is the one who created this concept of TTOX, which is tabletop conference, where you have hundreds of gamers, game designers, people who are interested in coming in. It's not like the if people have heard of Comic Con, Auto Expo, all of these big things, right? TTOX is a equivalent of it for board games. So I mean, it's a different world out there. So I will just leave this at this part and let's hear it from his mouth of what he exactly does and how we got started. So we'll have a very interesting conversation. As we speak about board games, usually we think of board games as a way of entertainment or a way of de-stressing. Though it is that there's a huge world out there and it is a major big world of economy, major big world of profession and a huge career. So let's get into a little bit of more detail about it. Falgun, thanks for being here, taking your time. And yeah, with that short introduction that I didn't want to take away everything because your introduction that I know of is a segment of its own. So let's have it as a conversation. So if you want to just start off with adding more color to what I just said, please.
Actually, that was very interesting when you suddenly asked me, how do I introduce you in a few lines? I started breaking my head over it and finally decided, I want to just keep it to the mission statement that we have currently. Putting a game in every Indian's home. So that has become our mission.
Mm-hmm.
All this while, the mission statement was it's high time, we made Indian themed games.
Uh-huh.
Then it moved on to, let's put India on the world map of board games. After we accomplished that, now we are focused on our home land, which is our country. Um, how can we make India smarter
Mm-hmm.
with board games? You know, one board game in every house at least. So that is our mission statement for the next 2 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the focus is on India.
Yeah.
So Indian stories for India, and telling having Indian narratives. The games should transport you into that world for some time, and this infinite amount of you know narratives there. Like it could be Indian culture, Indian traditions, Indian history,
Mm-hmm.
even pop culture, which is going on right now, is something which uh, the world obviously doesn't know much about India, but Indians themselves don't know much about India. So it became a great medium to tell stories
Mm-hmm.
through board games. And we have been designing close to 40 plus games a year, last 6 7 years, in fact. We
Mm-hmm.
started in 2017 December, but officially registered on 2018 May,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been nonstop. I mean, we were like, okay, let's experiment.
Uh-huh.
That sort of pushed us so deep into the rabbit hole. Now it's like, okay, we don't want to get out of this. This is wonderful. I love this wonderland.
You're in the wonderland
So,
already, yeah.
I mean, every time we think, are we doing the right thing? Are we on the right track? Some customer or some interaction
Mm-hmm.
reminds us and validates us that we are on the right track. They'll be like, "Oh, thank you so much for doing what you're doing," and
Mhm.
you're like, "Oh, wow, okay, this is what we wanted to hear." So many people. We have customers, ranging from all sorts of walks of life. I mean, the stories that I have, I can keep going on.
Mhm.
But thank you so much for allowing me to share my story here. And I know you guys. You guys are like family for me, and absolutely respect what you guys are doing. I love this initiative that you've started recently, and yeah, I'm excited to be part of it.
Thanks a lot. I mean, as we venture into it, right, we also had the same thought saying, let's make people aware of what's happening in India and the world and how we are contributing to it and what's there to come next. And
Right,
one of those things, as a niche, not a mainstream thing, right? People don't hear about games. I mean, we usually go back to games when they talk about games. We have all grown up playing a few of them, Snake and Ladders, Ludo, and at the max, we had this Monopoly. And a few people now are aware of the ecosystem of games. They've gone into big time gaming there. I mean, you know this world much better than us. But what we wanted to do today here is get as many people who are going to watch this or going to hear this podcast later become aware that there is something that is just beyond the traditional careers that we look at, see what
right,
we do. So we want to dig deeper into it. And if somebody's touched and played a board game, what goes behind having one on your table? So
right,
we explore the entire journey and what happens there, what kind of skills people have to
right.
develop to get there is what we want to start off. But before we get into any of those things, how or what motivated you to get into this world of board games designing?
Wow. Well, I don't think I've shared this story with many people, but yeah, I started my game design journey when I was probably 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can
I mean,
find it. Yeah, so, oh yeah, it's here. So recently, my mom was renovating. I mean, we were renovating the house, and my mom found this treasure basically. So, okay, I don't know how many people have actually seen this, but this is actually a monopoly that we created
mm-hmm.
in 1990.
Okay.
I mean 1989, 90.
Uh-huh.
So basically, these are like cardboard ruts, the notebooks that we used to have. The previous year's notebooks, we would cut it, put a kg cardboard on it, and me and my dad, I remember, that was the best time of my life that I spent with my dad,
Mm-hmm.
where I was so impressed with everything that he was doing, with the perfectionism and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. The even the text, even the font that is used, it's like century Gothic font.
Yeah. The classic.
He's handwritten everything. He did not let me come close to any of these cards then.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but yeah, so this it's amazing. Like, if you actually see some of these cards, it tells you the price of the notebooks at that time because it's on the back side. 4 rupees 50 paisa, 3 rupees 50 paisa for a 200-page rule book, right?
Yeah.
So that was how it started. And the reason why we did that is because summer holidays just went into playing trade and business
Mm-hmm.
with my cousins. I have a large cousins group of close to 16 kids,
Uh-huh.
plus or minus 1 or 2 years. Um, so, I mean, now we realize that we have played business and monopoly wrong all these years. When I got an opportunity to design Monopoly for Hasbro, that came a full circle.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's been very interesting. But more importantly, what we realized is in India, it started off as, when we had our kid, Rudy, I mean, Hruday, we call him Rudy. We used to travel a lot and we used to go to a lot of toy stores across the world, starting from US all the way to Japan, right?
Mm-hmm.
We visited most of the countries in Europe and everywhere. First thing we would do is hit a toy store because I'm still a kid at heart. In fact, there is a term which describes us, which is called a kidult.
Uh-huh.
In fact, that is a term which describes this particular demographic, which is, they are old but still buy Hot Wheels, still buy action figures. You can actually see some of them at the back. So kidults, I mean, you know, we went into Japan. I think in Japan, I went for a backpacking trip and went to Toys R Us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when it hit me that the entire, the game and the products, the toys and games and puzzles which were there in Japan was so to the core of Japan.
Mm-hmm. You mean the
And
Japan?
yeah, like this is modern trade we are talking about, right?
Uh-huh.
We go into a modern trade store and we are actually seeing products which are so deep rooted. And you have these art and craft things where you actually chisel out things and stuff like that. And it's 90% Japanese culture,
Uh-huh.
right? And 10% Avengers and Barbies
Mm.
and the typical stuff.
Right.
Um, What hit me was the modularity of their products.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually walk in and buy a railway set just enough
Uh-huh.
to play.
Okay.
And it will not even cost you 150 rupees
Mm-hmm.
converted if you convert it to Indian rupees. So you might have noticed a typical railway set that you would pick up from a toy store. Once the engine dies, it's gone. The
Right.
entire thing you'll have to replace because you will not get just that part.
Yeah.
Whether the plastic breaks or the motor breaks or something breaks, right? It's cheap plastic.
Yeah.
And you can't get a spare.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, there is an entire wall in Toys R Us, which is like a 60 feet wall with all bits and pieces, like how you find these mobile phone covers in
Right.
mobile phone stores. You have different pieces of the railway track. So you could actually walk in, pick up individual parts,
Mm-hmm.
and then use, like for a child,
Yeah.
you could actually walk in with like 500 yen, and I mean that's around 250 bucks, 250 rupees,
Yeah.
and actually get a usable product which you can keep expanding. So that was a level of modularity.
Yeah. Like Legos.
Exactly. Lego is still expensive,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, the smallest component, even a dabba that you buy of Lego, will
Yes.
easily range around 800, 900
Mm.
rupees minimum. Original Lego, right?
Yeah. No, I mean the
Uh,
concept building things on top of what you already have.
exactly. So the modularity blew my mind.
Uh-huh.
And the affordability.
Mm-hmm.
This will work in India. We are a land of Oyo and we are a land of, bite size kind of, what do you say? We want everything to be very accessible, right? It's cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And, everything needs to be affordable. Even for people, the first lesson we learned when we started this business was the different levels in the demographic,
Mm-hmm.
right? How middle class families behave, how upper middle class families behave. It was a very interesting learning for us. In fact, I spent a lot of time in Landmark because my son's school is right next to Brigade Mall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Orion Mall his Brigade school is right next to Orion Mall in
Mm-hmm.
Rajajinagar. And I used to drop him and I have to go pick him up in a couple of hours because he was still in, kindergarten and stuff. So I would hang out in the mall and this was like perfect place for me to analyze.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, while doing this, I was running a different company, which was a creative studio called Cusp Concepts.
Mm-hmm.
I was running it for, I mean, that was like the tail end of I had almost a decade long experience in that,
Mm-hmm.
being a cinematographer, photographer, and, being always behind the camera and building stories,
Mm-hmm.
documenting, you know, I love documenting life. I loved, this whole concept where you create memories,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that has transferred, you'll notice that as the core DNA, which has been transferred into making games as well, create memories, right, with your loved ones.
Uh-huh.
So, a lot of these things, I mean, I can go on, but fundamentally, what I realized was there was no market in India. There was
Mm-hmm.
nobody making toys or games in India, which was good quality, caters to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and at that point of time, millennials, right? What is that which will make them get out from their phones and stuff like that, and actually bond at the table?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a whole concept. High time India got cool toys and games. Started off with that.
Uh-huh.
Dice Toy Labs was born, which
Mm-hmm.
was you
That's
know,
an
to
enterprise.
plug that gap in the market.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't know if you know this. So if you look at while we were doing the analysis, are we in the right market? Is this something we should pursue and stuff like that? Um, we stumbled upon a very interesting metric.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've shared it with you guys. The world toy market is around $110 billion. And in that, 45% is just US.
Mm-hmm.
US consumption is that high. It's almost 45 to 50% of the world's market, that share, right?
Uh-huh.
India being such a huge country with 150 million people who have amazing amount of wallet size and disposable income
Mm-hmm.
in India, that 150 million people is bigger than 80% of the different countries in the world's their population, right? So India is a huge market.
Mm-hmm.
And then some numbers were not adding up. When we started looking at what is India's market share in the toys and game sector, this
Mm-hmm.
was before the government, was so excited and started investing so much into the toy sector. This
Mm-hmm.
was way before that. This was 2, 3 years before the light bulb grew for them.
Yeah.
Um, so around that time, we stumbled upon this number that India's market share in that entire world toy market is just 0.5%.
Okay.
So that just didn't add up because we would go to a mall, we'd go to all of these, different places to hang out for lunch or dinner, and we're seeing how people are spending money. They
Mm-hmm.
go to Starbucks and have a 400 rupees coffee. And I was like, wow, okay, India has changed. And, you know, something there was, there was a gap. Like India's spending capability and power and, strength is increasing, but the consumer products were not catching up. And then while all this was happening, and then we started launching a few games and it got extremely popular. So the first step for me when we registered the company was let's give it a year.
Uh-huh.
And all we had was one website with one banner which said High Time India got cool new toys and games.
Mm-hmm.
So we had toys, we had action figures, we had comics, we had augmented reality, which went hand in hand with the toys and games, um, puzzles, construction kits, everything, right? Board games was just 1/8 of the entire business model. But suddenly, COVID happened and, um, Bahubali had come out,
Yes.
which was raking in money, which made like 1,000 plus
Merchandise.
crores.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no merchandise around it, right?
Right.
It was like Star Wars or Marvel, any of the Avengers movie comes out or Jurassic Park or whatever. The toy stores are filled up with those
Right.
merch, like toys and t-shirts and everything. So I was like thinking, why isn't anybody making anything based on Bahubali?
Mm-hmm.
So we were actually working on one massive IP called Loka Awakens, which I have parked right now. We have invested quite a lot of money on that.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized we were way too early for India.
Uh-huh.
So we parked it, and I think we are going to bring it back next year.
Right.
It's sci-fi, it is into the future, and we'll have ton of characters, and it's got comic books and everything. Around that time, we were like, okay, you know what? This is an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
We just realized that there were absolutely no Indian soldiers, Indian forts, for example. We in India, any city you go to, you will definitely see at least one fort wall,
Yes.
right? And what do we have to replicate that feeling, right, of a fort? And we have castles, we have palaces. Lego, even if you Google, you'll find only castles.
Right.
That gave rise to the whole concept of this thing that Indian history has been written on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
So, battlefields have been the authors of Indian history. So we got that as an idea and
Mm-hmm.
we made Yuddhabhumi.
Yeah.
Yuddhabhumi, the idea was to make Indian minifigures,
Mm-hmm.
and that became such a hit.
Mm-hmm.
We actually took a booth at Comic Con, and it was way early then. I mean, pop culture was just catching up in India.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a fantastic booth for a pretty decent rate. So again, this was all of the experimentation part where we did not put too much money into manufacturing and stuff. So we
Uh-huh.
just wanted to get validation. this 3D printed piece,
Uh-huh.
are people excited about it,
So these were all
right?
happening before you took up this as this is
A
mainstream.
business, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So this was even before we registered it as a company.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then we got bombarded at Comic Con. They were like, dude, what the hell are you working on? I can't believe this is Indian. Are you sure this is an Indian product and all of that? And we're like, yeah, it is Indian. And they were like, okay, give it to me right now. I want these products right away, right? So that was true validation. They were like, okay, where can I buy it? So
Mm-hmm.
we got our critical mass of customers from there. And we also got a validation that what we were doing then was cutting edge.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example, to make a minifigure, like for example, small figures like this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If we had to make that 2, 3 years ago, it would take forever,
Right.
right? Somebody is sitting with wax and he's trying to sculpt it out, and then they make a mold and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Today we were at a crossroad where a 3D model can be done within 24 hours, and that same 3D model can be used for manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be used for video games as well.
Right.
So that gave me a sort of a fallback, in case this didn't work, I'll make video games, right? Um, so we started off like that, and Comic Con told. I mean, in fact, that was when Shweta, my wife, she was still working as a project manager in Cognizant,
Mm-hmm.
and up till then, she was like, "I'm not going to join every damn startup you come up with and every damn company you set up."
Uh-huh.
But after Comic Con, she was like, "Okay, I don't think you can handle this much of demand." And people hitting you every day. Let me help you. And she quit and she joined. And I
Uh-huh.
think that was the best thing that happened to the company. Uh, so yeah, I think it was a combination of the right narrative, right mission,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what was that one massive gap. But again, having the great team and everything is great. I mean, I was very lucky to have support from people as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have realized over the years, and in fact, this is what a lot of experienced businessmen will tell you,
Mm-hmm.
you have to hang in there.
Yes.
You have to be persistent. You have to pursue like there's no tomorrow. You should not give up. Even, there are 99% of the companies who shut down within the first 1 year.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, this was the thing, right? The moment we would think, are we on the right track? We would get hit by a life-changing incident which proved to us that we are on the right track.
Yeah. There's a hard.
So that was the main thing which motivated us to stick to this. But board games is something, uh, over and over again, we are realizing that it has the longest shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
And second, it's gender neutral, because if you look at video games and mobile gaming, they're mostly boys who are playing.
Right.
There's very, 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 very small percentage of girls who actually touch these games.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these are, board games makes it age neutral and things like that. And it's very, very, very cheap to make a board game versus a digital game.
Yes.
So around this time is when I realized that board game industry was 10x bigger than the digital gaming industry, which I was totally blown away.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah, huge market, right? The digital gaming is like it's crazy big.
Digital market is big. If you remove the real money
Mm-hmm.
businesses like rummy and poker and
Yeah.
do this, and so otherwise the actual digital gaming is very small. If you
Exactly.
actually go to Kickstarter, the crowdfunding platform, and search for how much these games have raised funds,
Mm-hmm.
50% of Kickstarter is just board games.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the reason is very simple. It's very easy to whip them out, versus a digital game, right? And there's no ROI with digital game because it dies after a couple of years.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, if
So
somebody played and if you gone and you don't go back and touch it, but while you have a shelf like what you have behind, and
correct,
there is a game there, you may want to go and play it. Somebody who's not seen it, you'll start going and playing it in.
exactly.
You may not be tech savvy to go understand the joystick and the controls. Because when Manu, my son, he starts asking me to go play Minecraft with him.
Hmm.
I'm still figuring out what to click, where to click, where not to. And by then, you've already completed what you're supposed to do. But that I think this is going to be a good long conversation today, Phalgun. I have a lot to ask.
Right.
So you touched upon a few points of why you started this as a profession, as a business. I mean, you this is your third venture,
Yeah.
Mosaic Games? Okay. You're a serial entrepreneur as well, but the reason why you started this game thing was not just about it being a business, but you saw there is a quality content that is required for India, and there is a huge need of what we could do with getting people engaged, having family time together, learning together, having fun, and giving identity to India to say this is what we are and this is what we are good at, and kind of bringing the attention back to what is our core strength, right? Just a couple of things around that is what we see when we go to all these ancient temples.
Yeah.
We see games etched on the floor. People think that
Exactly.
they're on gambling, but it was not. Games were used even those days as a tool of engagement, tool of learning. It was not like somebody would go to a Harvard to learn strategy. They used to go and play a small game in the neighborhood and learn a lot from it, because every time you play, there's a lot of permutations and combinations happening. And this has been there with us a long time, for a long time. India is good at stories. Like you mentioned, the history is written with on the warfields. That's what people very vividly remember about India. The colors, Taj Mahal, and some of the wars and some big names. But apart from that, there's a very big gap in understanding what India is actually. The beautiful stories that we have, the art that we have, and everything. That is a nice thing that we could bring across. And you have done that with few of your games. I mean, I can see Valamkali behind you. So,
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
for
That's
me,
such
I
a
can
hit.
connect to all of those things because we've been seeing these things in Lila Group. Our children are playing it day in, day out. I was not into a lot of board games. The board game apart from the Ludos that I had played was business, the Indian version of what it is, right? And after getting here is where I started seeing a lot of games and what it can do.
Right.
Melancholy is such a nice, simple game, but it has so much of an engagement. People are really invested in it. They all are hooting, shouting, screaming. It's a beautiful game,
Yeah.
and we learn a lot. How do you
Yes.
place your bets? How do you organize your team? How do you plan your moves and all of those things? And when talking about play, I think it's the most natural way of learning anything, right?
100%.
We have
It
seen
it it allows you to, it creates a platform where you're free to fail,
exactly, yeah.
and you're not judged on, right?
This
It's
puts
something
play.
which you're, I mean, you fail today, you play again, you fail again, you play again. So
I mean, that's something that we see in the wild as well. Young cubs, they're fighting with each other. They're mimicking the hunting while they're playing with their mothers or their siblings, instead of just going there and really fighting out another animal. So they're learning the skills through play, and that's what play does. A lot of it happens there.
yeah.
So your journey of understanding the gap, the need, the requirement, and your calling from inside to becoming a venture, there are a lot of things that happens, right? And you
Oh,
said
yeah.
you send a few games. You started with.
100%.
So there is a huge journey in this. You conceive an idea, a concept of a game, then you actually produce a game, and then you go sell it. There are three main things that happens. What do you enjoy doing the most in these three things?
Oh, wow. Okay, so I mean, initial years until 2022, 23, I would be bloody excited to whip out games. In fact, we used to design so many games in a year. I remember during COVID, one toy company reached out, and it said, we want 20 games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that really allowed us to sail
20.
through COVID. 20 different games.
Okay.
And this was a company called Win Magic Toys.
Mhm.
I'm really happy that they actually reached out, because we were probably the only game design agency out there which is specialized at game design, right?
Mhm.
So initially it was all about figuring out product market fit. I come from a business B school background, right? I mean, I've been it's with any business, it's very important to understand who the market is and then try to solve the problems,
Right.
not figure out a solution first and then find a market for that
Yeah.
solution.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's not about shoving it down someone's throat, instead work backwards, right? So we were basically trying to check if there is a market. There was no market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're in a place where there is no market,
Mm-hmm.
in India, but there was a massive market outside India, right? So that anyway was telling us that, hey, no matter what you make, there is
Mm-hmm.
somebody to buy. Okay. If not in India, there's somebody outside who will buy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there are a lot of other things that goes in with it. You have to have a great narrative, what the people can relate to. You need to have great components, great artwork. The gameplay should be flawless. It should be stitched, woven so well with the story that, you know, you feel that you're actually in the game, not just paste a theme on a random game mechanic, right? It should make sense. Um, so all that we had figured out, right? And around this time, there were so many roadblocks. There were so many roadblocks as a business. Um, I don't know if you know this. Dice was discovered in the Indus Valley civilization.
Okay. Yeah.
You can just Google for it. You'll see one dice which is actually made out of bone.
No surprise.
And even today, there are no dice manufacturers in India.
Wow. That's shocking. That is.
Today is 2024, 25, right? And we are looking at this year. Still, no manufacturers for dice today, right? And it's kind of shocking that we are in an era where all these things must have been figured out, right? I mean, they keep saying toy, they're investing in toys and all of that, right? So in fact, when we actually went around talking to different plastic manufacturers,
Mhm.
um, they would look at all the requirements that we have and they said, sir, no, I can't make these. And they're like, okay, I would ask them, what do you make? They said, we make buckets, we made mugs, you know. And finally, when I found a guy, he was the only manufacturer in whole of India. Can you
Uh-huh.
imagine? Just one manufacturer in whole of India. So the different roadblocks that we faced were there were no board game manufacturers. We had to handhold and convert manufacturers into board game manufacturing. In fact, I remember first time going to my manufacturer just down the road
Mhm.
because someone recommended that he makes amazing boxes.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, okay, let's go check it out. Just boxes, right? The outer box. And
Okay.
I was talking to him and he whipped out a box within 10-15 minutes right under my nose. I was like, oh my God, this is the best, right? And I was all the time working like this. I was not looking outside India. I was not looking at what are Germans, Europeans doing, what are American publishers doing, nothing. I was like, okay, I'm planning to do this.
Mhm.
Are there manufacturers in my vicinity, right? First time I remember they were like, what the hell is this? What the hell is that? And all of that. So figuring out manufacturing was the most ultimate thing. That we fixed it over the last, from 2018 to 2022. I think we scaled so much with the quality of the products. We started surpassing even some of the international games quality.
Okay.
And the advantage of that, in fact, the previous point when I was talking to you about the cutting edge, we were at the crossroads of this innovation curve. Um, the advantage of working today
Mhm.
was that we don't have to follow the archaic processes that people have invested for the last few decades in.
Mhm.
So China invested in these manufacturing processes 30, 40 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So
13.
when we actually found a manufacturer down the road, my requirement was very simple to him, right? I was telling him, I need cards, I need tokens, I need a dabba, I need,
Yeah.
different components like this. So I would tell him I want a round token. He was like, why? I would tell him I want a hexagonal token. My first game, which we published, was called Honey Skirts, which had hexagons tokens.
Uh-huh.
That was one of the biggest challenges in his life,
Mhm.
right? First of all, convincing him why it is required, and second, why a particular count of these are required,
Uh-huh.
right? In case I say I need 60 cards
Uh-huh.
and 10 cards in six colors, which makes up 60 cards, it has to be 1 to 10, 1 to 10, right? They would just dump 60 cards.
Uh-huh.
it didn't matter to them whether it has to be 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10
They are
of
not
each color.
thinking of the game, right? For him,
Yeah,
it's just
because they don't know that board games are a collectible. It's considered like precious, it's not something you just, oh, happy birthday, you give it to somebody, I'm like, oh, very nice, thank you, and then chuck it off. It's not a gifting product, right? Where you send a perfume in a fancy dabba or a ring in a fancy dabba.
mm-hmm,
So it was very it took a quite some time to, that learning curve for them also was tremendous, and they learned so much over time that they started taking up orders from other publishers.
mm.
So manufacturing was sorted.
Okay. In a way, you taught them the business of game production.
Exactly. So in fact, during COVID, they couldn't print anything.
Mm-hmm,
So I really am grateful to COVID in one way,
mm-hmm.
only for this particular thing, where we had an 800% spike in sales during COVID.
Yes.
So everybody started picking up games.
Mm-hmm.
You paused for a second. Okay.
Yeah, it was the
So
network fancy stuff. Yeah.
yeah, so COVID, at that point of time, one, I am professor,
Mm-hmm.
Ahmedabad. I am Ahmedabad, the marketing professor. His name is Shubhadeep Roy or something. He reached out to me by email saying, "Hey, I found your games on the 14th page on Flipkart."
Okay.
And none of the games that came before that was something which I wanted to buy for my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really happy that I found your products. And he took it up as a case study for his marketing students.
Okay.
He was like, I'm tired of doing, Titans and, all the popular brands in India.
Uh-huh.
This is something which Indians will learn. Like, okay, it's a startup and it's a great market out there. There's a huge opportunity because India has the manufacturing capability. India has stories. Why aren't many people getting into it?
Uh-huh.
If they did get into it, what are the problems they're going to face and stuff? It was very interesting. I learned a lot. The funny thing is, we were learning so much every month that
Mm-hmm.
the 1 month older me
Mm-hmm.
was a dumbass.
Uh-huh.
So every month we're learning so much that if somebody spoke to me like a month back or 2 months back, and if they spoke to me today, there would be a paradigm shift in perspectives.
So it's a huge
Yeah,
learning.
because we are learning
Yeah.
constantly. We are learning constantly, and that is also another important thing as a business, that you need to be ready to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
If you think this is my capability, this is my comfort zone, that's it. If it doesn't suit my comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm going to quit,
Mm.
right? Um, yeah, I think that is what probably differentiates a lot of entrepreneurs who are extremely persistent and from the other people. Like we actually joined what do you say, an accelerator program which is run by the founders of Infosys.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the only product company who were shortlisted out of 600 applicants.
Nice.
And 20 people were chosen, to 20 startups. In that, we were the only product company.
Okay.
In fact, our mentors in that accelerator program, it's called a cohort or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, they didn't know what to tell us because
You know,
they're used to
previous.
digital. Yeah, they're used to SaaS and all
Yes.
kinds of infrastructure as a service and software as a service companies. They knew, like, you need daily active users, monthly active users, how to drive traffic, what are the
Yes.
bundles you need to have for people to pay and stuff like that. For us, they were like, we don't know where to start. So it was a lesson that we had to learn ourselves by burning our fingers. The most amazing, life-changing thing was when we put ourselves in front of our customers' faces. So until then, in fact, the case study that IMA did was all about how direct to consumer business is the in thing,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't need middlemen and you don't need this. And then you realize that online penetration in India is just 3%.
Mm-hmm.
97% of the country still buys offline.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
totally.
we pivoted to making, having physical spaces, like a
Yeah.
permanent space where people can walk in and buy and stuff. That was how Board Game Bazaar and, Mosaic Games were born. And then they made, another person from MDI. MDI is a Management Development Institute in Gurgaon.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to make a case study, and one of the persons who was doing the research had also worked on a previous case study,
Mm-hmm.
and her name is Pretty Singh. She was like, dude, you have completely changed. You've gone to the other end of the spectrum. You said D2C is the thing, and now you're
Yeah.
saying, physical store is the thing. So that is how fast we have to change. If you don't change, you die, right?
Yes.
You have to evolve.
So there's a
So,
lot of points there, Phalgun, because I had a few questions about this to follow, but you answered them in the whole narration that you just gave. So just going back to how you described when I asked the question of what you enjoy the most, looking at how much time you spent in discovering this whole process of creating and producing a game and putting attention to detail, I feel it that is something that you enjoy the most, you close to your heart, because even the games that we see that comes out of it, right? The unboxing of the game box that comes and lands on you, the artwork that is there, the way the material is packed and picked up, the colors, the digital art that the art that goes into it. So I think that's where you kind of you put in completely your
oh yeah,
100% get the
we
best
are obsessed with
and feel,
game design that
right?
way.
And having your other side of it, you being an entrepreneur, the business side of it also is something that you're mastered, and that is something that also keeps driving you because you are kind of getting both the things together. One is you're conceiving games. It's not like I want to create something and find the problem to solve, but you are going and figuring out what is the problem that is there, and then creating
Then
a
figuring out
solution,
as well. Yes.
making it creative, and also selling it to the right audience and making it a flourishing business. And at that point of time, and when you were saying that, I had a couple of points that I wrote down. Problem to solve, as you mentioned, is the biggest thing that if you
Yeah.
do not understand what problem you want to solve, then you're just doing stuff randomly.
So every year we are only solving problems, right? I mean, first it was manufacturing, then it was a physical store.
Yeah.
We realized that people love to touch and feel games. It's an experiential product. You can't sell it online. We would sell under the sun in the rain.
Yeah.
I remember Shweta falling ill. Um, and then we came across this problem of a lot of other publishers who couldn't get their games into the hands of the customers, so we started handholding them. And then the another big problem today
Uh-huh.
is distribution.
Yes.
There are no stores where you can actually walk in and buy across the world.
Why is that so?
I mean, across the country.
Okay.
I think it's exposure. People don't have an idea.
Uh-huh.
Now, the best thing that we could do is give this exposure to people in a platform where we are not pressurizing them to do anything. Like, for
Mhm.
example, if you go to Comic Con, you first of all, you're paying a very expensive pass, right? It's like 899 rupees or something for a day. And what do you do once you enter?
Yes.
You again have to spend money at every store.
Mm-hmm.
But at TTOX, the tabletop expo that we organize, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Very excited about it. At TTOX, we saw that getting everybody under one roof and making a platform where they can play
Mm-hmm.
24 hours of gaming, no pressure, no paying per hour per person, 100 rupees, like how you would go to a cafe and you're rushed into learning it and stuff like that, right? So yeah, there are a lot of problems which we have overcome, and now the distribution is what I'm working on. So
Mm-hmm.
for the next 2 years, there are two big gaps that we are trying to fill. We want to get into general trade where you walk into a Kirana store, you will
Yes.
find games there.
That's a beautiful thing to have because that is what will give a lot of people the exposure to the beautiful games that we have. Because each of
Exactly.
these games that are there, it's got a story to tell. It's got a beautiful narrative, and because you are focusing on Indian market, that's the best way of having the games to teach children the upcoming the
So
Gen.
here we are actually making it a lot more easier by licensing,
Yeah,
games and stuff. Like we are designing for Tinkle and Amar Chitra Katha. We are designing games based on Panchatantra and stuff like that.
perfect.
So
So this is a part of the segment which is really interesting because we have a lot of children and parents out there who doesn't know a lot of what goes on in a lot of these things, right? That's what
Right.
we wanted to have you help us understand. So there is a lot of changes in the technology that has happened. Earlier, there were no production houses where they could produce things. Now, 3D
Right.
print was something that you mentioned. That is something it's making it easy.
Correct.
And with all of these things happening, and there's a lot
AI.
of technology, AI, of course,
Yeah.
and people getting to know more about it. People are ready to spend. People realizing the value of what a board game can do, where it can get people together and all of that. If a guy who's 10-year-old or kid who's 10-year-old listening to this, or the parents who are listening to this, if they want the child to pursue this as a career tomorrow, what do you think are the skills that they should pick up?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for a child right now, I mean, it's up to our responsibility to make them see the world through this particular lens,
Mm-hmm,
is in your lifetime, do whatever you want,
mm-hmm,
but you have to have added that extra value into someone's life or in the nature or to planet Earth, right? Uplift.
mm-hmm,
Take it from level 0 to even level 1, and
mm-hmm,
then you die. It's okay.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Make that shift, make that, push it. It's like thermodynamics, right?
Yes.
It's just add that energy, add that value. Let whoever you're pushing that energy to, let them move from level 0 to level 1, level 2, level 3.
Mm-hmm,
Now, what is that problem that you can solve for that particular person, right? You'll only understand when you start empathizing with
mm-hmm.
them. Right now, a lot of children went through this cycle of being extremely selfish, like my life, my happiness,
Yeah.
what is going to make me happy, Um that has become a narrative right now. When you talk to a kid, it's like, oh, I don't care about his life. I want to make sure that my career is fine. My weekend is sorted.
Mm-hmm,
Right? They are happy. The moment you start thinking about, okay, all this while you're only consuming for yourself.
mm-hmm,
What if you made another person's life better?
mm-hmm,
Right? You can do this in a small scale, you can do it in a very large scale.
mm-hmm.
And this is what, with every child, or my cousins, my children, I mean, my son, in fact, my children, sorry. My son, this is what I keep telling him. He keeps saying, "Hey, Dad, I don't want to do engineering." I'm like, "Yay, hallelujah!" Right? Because that's the path we all followed. Do engineering, do after that, do whatever you want,
Right.
right? You have a fallback of sorts. And then we realized that we've done a big mistake. I wish I didn't waste that 4 years in engineering and did something worthwhile like product design or
Need
something.
the exposure to that, and now that we are
Exactly.
hearing all of these things, and people
So
want.
even career choices, right? Game design was not even a career choice. Game publishing was not a career choice. So
Is there academic uh, teaching for this game designing, or is it something that you have to organically develop by yourself?
it's as simple as playing 10 games. You
Okay.
don't even need to be trained by a teacher. You
Okay.
play 10 games, you'll start discovering. So, to make a good game, in fact, even if you take Uno,
Uh-huh.
right? Uno is something which millions of people have played. But when you actually break it down into the mechanics in the game, right? It's called card drafting. Card drafting is when you pick a particular card,
Mm-hmm.
right? There is something called predictive probability. You know that certain cards have been played and that deck doesn't have that many cards, and people have certain cards in their hand. It could be there,
Yes.
right? You know that some of the draw fours haven't come yet
Yes.
and the deck is finishing,
Yeah.
and you
So
know that only two are consumed,
correct.
right? And so these are, it's called hand management. It is called card drafting. There are so many different game mechanics in this. There is something called take that mechanism in this,
Mm.
right? Every game is made up of 2 to 3 game mechanics on average, which are mutually exclusive, right? And when you play 10 games, you're getting exposed to 30 to 40 new game mechanics.
Yes.
Imagine playing 40 games.
Yeah.
You're getting used to 100 plus game mechanics.
True.
So this is expanding. See, again, I saw a question from Rishit saying that what is that skill that a teen should learn, right?
Yeah.
It takes me back to this one brilliant question. Jack Ma is like my role model.
Uh-huh.
He's the founder of Alibaba.
Mhm.
He's actually a school teacher. He's English teacher who set up Alibaba.
Yeah.
And Alibaba changed the trajectory of China in the last couple of decades, right? So I was totally like, he was like my role model, and then he went absconding and all that. But um, he said a very interesting thing. He was like, what are those three skills which even AI or the computer can't take it away from you,
Right. And exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Like a Mona Lisa can be recreated by AI now.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. It will recreate Mona Lisa in multiple things. But the person who created Mona Lisa as an artwork, right, which is actually taken as a reference by
Hmm.
all of these AIs, right, that somebody did it.
Correct.
So creativity, imagination, and problem solving, these are three things which no computer, no AI can take it away from you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you improve these three things?
Hmm.
Creativity, imagination, and problem solving. The only thing that comes to your mind are board games.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. To do
it's
all of this.
preparing everybody for any sort of things. In fact, we run a business like a board game.
Mm. Yes.
So,
Yeah, if you can do it there, you can do it in real, right? As,
exactly.
as you mentioned, when you're playing a game, just the Uno game, which is a very familiar game, a lot of people would have played, even Rummy for that matter, right?
Yeah,
It's that is known that people play it for fun, but what is happening there? Even if there is a guy in the village sitting and playing that, you feel like he's a dumbass guy who is not even gone to the college, school,
yeah,
studied anything. He's just a gambler sitting there.
yeah,
But thinking of what he does, he knows which card is drawn, what are the probabilities that he's going to have that card or not, whether he'll be able to make the set he's supposed to make,
yeah,
who else going to win. So he's learning all of those things, and he's rather master
exactly.
because he's winning it over and over again. Same thing
Yeah,
happens, the patterns, the probabilities of what you can turn, how you can turn the game around, how you can play the weakness of your enemy or the opponent that you have. All
exactly.
things are
And you're reading the opponents, you're reading
the
their
mind,
expressions. Yeah,
language, who is trying to hide, who is trying to make what move. These are the things that subtly you learn through board games. Not just that, you're learning a lot of human skills. Plus, also there are certain games which we have seen where you learn a lot about real stuff, like the stuff that we even learn in academics. Like for example, photosynthesis as a game, you learn science
exactly.
concepts there.
Yes,
So there are so many games that teach us a lot of things, new science for that matter. So all of those things. I mean, ironically or coincidentally, we have this workshop happening because it's summer holidays and all of that. There are children coming in at
oh yeah, I've been watching that. It's
you did it?
wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the
they're
carom
playing
board.
games throughout the day, learning amazing science concept that took us like 7, 8 years to master or learn, even to get to understand and write it in the exam. But these guys are practically learning it. The kids come back and talk about those big concepts of helium, atom, the atomic weight. Like, where did you learn
Absolutely.
this? Said we played a game. What?
Yeah.
We learned
Exactly. That's the best way to learn, right? I mean, contextual connections and all of these. See, I keep telling my son one thing, if he sucks at academics, I don't care.
Hmm.
But if he sucks at a game, then I'll be worried, right? Because a game is actually kind of igniting these senses in your left and right brain, lateral thinking, and you're thinking three, four steps ahead. You're planning, you're organizing, you're streamlining. It's everything. It's a wholesome experience for a child,
Hmm.
especially to develop skills here, right? And this is how your daily life is going to be in the future,
Yeah.
right? You're going to be negotiating, you're going to be facing competition, and at the same time, you're trying to make a mark and you're trying to perfect yourself. And what is it that you should perfect in? What skill should I be an expert in?
Yeah.
You're trying to figure that out. So, uh, again, one more thing that I'm noticing a lot of late is, before we end this conversation, um, the word term gamification became extremely popular in schools and corporates,
Even
right?
corporate.
And unfortunately, you might have seen people take their entire team for an outing and they do all of these game activities. And, the L&D department is trying to figure out who is the fittest among them, right? So it's like trying to figure out, you're from a herd of sheep or whatever, which one you want to pick.
Yeah.
It's something like that. So, gamification is such an abused word. Now people are slowly realizing what gamification is. In fact, there has been a paradigm shift in game design in the last few years. Like when Catan was introduced, Even before Catan, like Uno and all of these games, gave, they had this thing called elimination,
Right.
where people get eliminated and, the last person continues playing and other people are just watching you play, right?
Hmm.
Elimination as a concept was completely removed.
Okay.
Okay. In fact, even Monopoly, waiting till that end game trigger happens,
Yes.
you know, where everybody gets broke, I mean, is broke and bankrupt, and then they're eliminated, and then you find the last person,
Monopoly.
who'll win. That is bullshit.
Hmm.
Then Catan happened. Catan removed a lot of things, right?
Hmm.
And then from Catan, where they introduced asymmetric setup, meaning every game is different, dice was used for a completely different purpose.
Hmm.
It had economics built in. I'm trading things, I'm exchanging things, and to build certain things. And the goal was victory points. The end game condition became victory points, where it was a race.
Yeah.
Then today, there's again a paradigm shift happening. In fact, we are in the golden era of Indian board games. That's what I tell everybody. It's not just golden era of board games, but Indian board games. There is going to be, the next 5 years are going to be defined by amazing games coming out of India,
Yes.
and the world is recognizing that, and we are seeing that, with our own eyes, being shortlisted from 1,000 people for Gen Con's entrepreneurial avenue. Is That was one of the things, right? It was so easy to pitch. We're like, this is the first time an Indian company is showing up in the last 50 60 years of Gen Con, and they're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
select. Right? So it's not just about being in the niche, it's being the expert in the niche, being the hero, the leader of that particular niche.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, oh, I want to be different. That's
Yes.
it.
So what makes you different is what you need to
Yeah. Be a perfectionist. Be the person to go with, right?
focus.
In fact, I recently had an argument with my sister, who's again belongs to a previous generation, right? She was like, you need to be a jack of all
Hmm.
and not, master of none. In fact, that statement
Yes.
completes, there's a second half to that nobody knows.
Yeah.
Uh, it still says, if you actually see the second statement, which actually goes like, and until you realize, you're master of none or something like that. Something like that, basically saying that you have to be a perfectionist, you have to be an expert at something.
Yes.
And going forward, we need experts.
Yes. Hyper specialization.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
that is again that is something that is happening. There are terms that are used called T personality and a pi personality. So you have a breadth of exposure of to multiple things, but you are hyper specialized or a domain expert in one single thing. That is what makes you stand out there.
right.
Uh, that is something that you mentioned as well. At this point, I just want to see if anybody has any questions from the audience that we can take and then move on. As I told, this is going to be long. I'm not going to let you go so
No,
fast.
we can go on and on, because
But
this
yeah,
is not even touching the tip of the iceberg. Seriously,
exactly. Yes.
once we start looking at the supply chain, especially with this whole Chinese tariffs happening, US putting 145% on Chinese products.
Okay.
Suddenly, everybody's looking at India. They're like, oh, which is the other country which is cheap labor,
Yes.
right?
They consider
And
personality of a game designer, a creative person, as a the business guy inside. I think we should do two separate segments. Today, while we focus on what it is about games and gaming, I think we could have another segment where we talk about the enterprising, the business skills that is required. So we could do one more segment on that. But at this point of time, anybody else has any questions? I noticed the question from Rishit as well, which you took up and
yeah,
think about it. Anyone else you have any other thing to ask?
I think, see, that's the thing, right? A lot of people are going to keep asking the same question. My son is getting into that. My daughter is getting into this. Is it the right thing, right? I remember when I quit my job as a business analyst in Mindtree. This was long ago. I used to work in Los Angeles with all the
Mhm.
studios in Hollywood. We were building applications for them. And I quit one day and said, I don't want to do this. I want to do something of my own.
Mhm.
My mom arranged for a round table conference with all my family members, and made me sit in the middle and say, now tell everybody. I'm like, why? They don't even understand what I'm trying to do.
Even a virtual Shark Tank.
Exactly. So I just dissed everybody and said, I'm going to pursue something, I want to do something which I feel, people are going to pay for my creativity.
Mhm.
And, we did that cusp concerts for 10 years. And then now again, people are like, oh, um, who is going to buy games are for children,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
exactly,
So
right. It's all that's another perspective that we have. Games are for children. I mean, if I'm seeing the screen behind you, right? There's Tiger. Children can play it, of course. Not that they cannot, and they get up, they get those skills really well. That teaches you business. That teaches you being smart,
exactly.
choices. What?
Chaigaram is an entrepreneurial game.
uh,
It's being used in so many business schools to teach inventory management, market analysis, competitive landscaping.
the
It
beauty
can
of
go on. So
people consume chai like crazy in India. That's
yeah,
things that you cannot. It's a cultural part of it, right? You go to anybody's house, it's like chai pika jao, and you meet somebody, chalo chai pita hai. So that is something that is there, and you converted that whole culture of chai, the affection that we have for chai, into a game that teaches business skills. It's
yeah.
amazing, and how this can be done. So
We actually designed another game for a venture capital firm who wanted to tell their portfolio companies that, hey, you have to give the investors an exit as well. So we designed one game called Stratosphere. So one of the biggest, advantages of being in this industry is the number of designers, graphic designers who are getting, who are studying now. I mean, product design has become you know, a branch in engineering colleges now. So, Bachelor of Design, right? BDES or whatever they call. In fact, PES has BDES. I teach in PES, I teach in Srishti, I teach in so many other schools.
what do you teach?
Game design.
Okay.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship.
Right.
So recently, in fact, we had a bunch of students who came from a college in Jayanagar, and they kept saying they have designed toys, they have designed toys. I thought it's a product design company,
Mhm.
and when they actually came and showcased the pictures, it was business.
Mm.
It was understanding business.
Yes.
So the first thing I noticed is everybody's talking like a scientist. I was like, dude, customers are not going to pay for your knowledge.
Yes.
Customers are going to pay for what value they're getting out of the product. What is your value proposition?
Yeah.
Right. When you're pitching a product to somebody, you have to tell what problem you're solving, not tell how amazing credentials you have, you
Yeah.
know,
Palatable.
uh, the material you have used. Nobody cares.
Yes.
Right. You should not talk like a scientist when you are talking business.
That's something that
So,
needs to be understood, right? How do you use your academic knowledge into making something that matters for people as compared
exactly.
to the other end? So I think Arunaji has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was, yeah, yeah. Like it's a very interesting thing to know about board games because I don't know somehow um as he was pointing out, I'm not so much keen on any kind of games. So I was trying to understand the things back for like what is that is there in a game which makes it so interesting for a human being.
I think it's a story. It's creating a story, and you are, the main leading character in that story. And the beauty about it is, you don't know the ending and you don't know the middle part. It's not like a storybook or a jigsaw puzzle. A jigsaw puzzle, you know how the final output is going to look. A game is going to give you multiple opportunities and multiple paths. And now it's not about choosing only one path to win, right? A good game will actually introduce you to take decisions at every point. Okay, is this a right decision? Is this a right decision? Right? And you can actually make a hybrid path for yourself to win. And that is what, I mean, if you can draw parallels to real life as well, it's like you have so many opportunities in front of you. What is it that you're going to take, right? That critical thinking, digging deep to such a level, you're dissecting it and seeing, okay, is this going to let me get to my destination, get to my goal, right? So there are infinite number of games out there. I mean, to give you a quick number, in the last 60 years, every year there have been 5,000 new games being launched across the world. And in India, we are still 30-40 years behind the world where we are still with Ludo and Snakes and Ladders. Though they're fantastic, uh, there is an opportunity for you to learn multiple stories from multiple cultures by trying out different games. To give you an example, last TTOX, we had 65 plus designers. There were designers who had made games based on Varanasi. And when you say Varanasi, what comes to your mind, right? You think of the river, you think about the ghats and the Mangalarti that happens and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had actually made a game based on Varanasi's history all the way back to Chandragupta Maurya's era.
Mm-hmm.
How trade used to happen down the river and the market economics and macroeconomics. And another person had designed a game based on Banarsi silk. How there's a different team for each one of them, how to make different patterns, how there are different levels of employees that are in a different hierarchy to make Banarsi silk. I am a game designer who can talk silk today. Can you imagine? This is all because of the game. And I can keep going on. There are so many games out there. Like recently, one of my favorite game is based on search for extraterrestrial intelligence called SETI.
Mm-hmm.
And when you actually tell children, hey, you know what, there's a whole world outside this earth that we're living in, all the problems feel smaller.
Yeah. Okay. Like alone.
So, when we started telling them, hey, there are multiple galaxies, multiple universes, multiple solar systems, and they could be living life out there, intelligent life
Yep.
out there. And it just opens up their eyes. They're like, shit, we are so small and minuscule on this planet, in this universe. Uh, yeah, there are a lot of things you can learn through infinite number of games. I mean, I have close to 450 plus games here. I've lost count, in fact. But at T-Talks, we'll be having 1,000 plus games with different narratives. So
Yeah. Thanks for that, Phalgun. And just to add to that
It's
question of what Arunaji
just
asked, right?
thing.
Uh, what
Last,
makes
just one last thing. So our I mean, you were mentioning that like in India, people are not building too many games, or rather, have not built as it. So what I feel like, are these games used in other parts of the world
yeah.
to teach subjects to children also?
Oh yeah, 100%. Um, to give you an example, one person recently reached out from US and they have made a game called Shakti Warriors.
Okay.
And she is a complete hardcore white person.
Okay.
Okay. And she's making a game called Shakti Warriors. Okay. And I was like, how did you come up with the name? She said, my yoga teacher inspired me. I'm like, wow. Okay. Now, what are they doing with this game? Right? They have created a platform where children can open up. Even the most introvert child in the class
Mm-hmm.
actually opens up through the game. Right? And we have noticed this. I mean, this is not a one-off case. We have, a major chunk of our customers are actually teachers.
Okay.
Um, I remember once where one teacher from Teach for India, his name is Abhijit. He's a graduate from Stanford now. He still teaches. He still uses Yudhbhumi. And he was buying 7, 8 copies of Yudhbhumi. I'm like, let me know next time you buy. I can actually give you a bulk discount. And I started having a conversation with him. And he started saying that Yudhbhumi was one of the games. I mean, it could be any game, right? Forget about Yudhbhumi. It could be any game. Some of these extra introvert students in his class who were considered as bullies because they would not talk much and the only conversation they would have is when people poke them or something and they would react and they would think, oh, this person's a bully, right? They actually opened up during the game and they had a blast. And we've seen that so many times in games, in fact. Uh, so yeah, games, teachers actually use it to learn more about the child. The the child is exposed to multiple situations and how they're going to react to that particular situation. And more importantly, there is no pressure for the child to, you know,
pass
like
an
for
exam?
example, yeah, for example, I did a gamification course for, these executive MBAs once.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the, I wouldn't say students, one of the people in the class, He comes from Maruti Suzuki, all right. And this Maruti Suzuki manager, he's more like a supervisor. He was actually saying that my employees don't know much about team building. They're very competitive. If there is a mistake down the the assembly line, and it was someone else's mistake, these guys will not even point it out because they want that person to fail. You know, to tell the supervisor, see, that person left a nut loose or forgot to put a nut or whatever, right? So they decided to run a L&D exercise where they gave everybody a PPT and made them watch a video and then told them to answer certain questionnaire, certain questions. And even that didn't solve. And that's when we actually suggested, why don't you try gamification? Make a game where they might fail. They might learn about everybody's skills, in the team. And, they open up, they know more about that person. That kind of a barrier between them is kind of broken. It's more like an icebreaker as well. And they actually tried it and it became a major success. So, games actually have a very, very powerful. A lot of people mistake games for figuring out who is the smartest among them, who is the fittest among them, who is the most intelligent person. That is wrong, right? Games are actually used to level the playing field, in fact. So,
Yeah. So,
And
that's a
also,
very good question. Rajat, just to
one last question, sorry. So,
feel free. I'm always available, even Lila Kurukulam guys know about it. So you can reach me out anytime.
okay, like, but there's still one last question. So, is this game design an inherent thing which is built in every human being, or it's kind of like only few people possess this? And second thing is that,
Great
like,
question.
how easy is it to acquire this skill?
Somebody, I was actually talking to an illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
and he's actually, you can check out their Instagram page. It's called Vanarasena.
Vanarasena, okay.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're too good. Um, he actually told me this one thing, that when it comes to creativity or even illustration, a lot of people, just because a child draws a outline of some character really well, you'll be like, oh, this person is creative, right? This is so creative. I'm like, how is that got to do with creativity when you're replicating something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, he actually mentioned a very interesting thing, saying that he challenged me. In fact, he said, I can make anybody creative. I was like taken aback, because until then I was like, okay, there are different people with different traits and different skill sets, they're wired different and stuff like that. But that's when I realized, when you're exposed to a particular skill again and again and again and again, you become an expert at that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that motivation for doing something, I mean, if you actually talk to any game designer, he will tell you that anybody can design a game. In fact, believe me, Indians are wired like that. Okay. We go and eat gobi manchuri somewhere. I've seen my mom and my sister say, I'll make this at home. I know what ingredients they put.
yeah,
Right? Indians have that thing.
good at reverse engineering.
Exactly. We're amazing at reverse engineering and jugaad, right? But at the same time, we are also very creative. So it's just a matter of what medium are you going to use to communicate. Simple. I can draw, I can write, I can talk. I could be extremely visual. I might suck at communication, but I'm great at writing emails because I'm not in front of you. You know, so it's just a medium of communication. You have to just pick the right medium, and if that works for you, great, you'll become an expert at it. So design is something which used to be considered as a special skill, but now they have broken it down into bytes, which makes anybody great at design. So that's one of the biggest revelations I had. There is a process to it. There is an iterative process to it, where you conceptualize, you test it, you go back, you fix it and stuff like that. But in the process, how do you get more information? You do research, you do user research. You see what is that problem that person is having. You spend a lot of time with them and probably see some explicit issues. At the same time, you'll see some implicit issues which don't come out easily, right? So, the user research and all of these different bits, like, brainstorming is one major thing. We've never heard of these things when we were kids, right? Let's brainstorm about something where you actually sit and collate ideas and then make a hybrid model of everybody's best ideas, right?
Very true.
Which is something which we never used to do. So all of these things have been broken down into bite-sized uh, scientific techniques, proved techniques, which anybody can, uh, take up, learn. You you want to become a game designer, it's very easy to become a game designer today. But again, being a game designer is just 5% of the entire life cycle of a good game. So there is the business side, there's a supply chain side, there are a lot of things which actually goes into the getting a game out into the hands. I mean, today Bharat was mentioning how Chaigaram and Valamkali are popular and all that. We have taken 4 years or more to actually perfect it before it went into print. So we have played it with thousands and thousands and thousands of people until we have tested out random things in these games, and finally what worked, what put a smile on people, what made people say, take my money, I want this game, right? That is when we realize, okay, it is flawless now. Math is working, everything is working, play testing is helping us a lot. So once we were happy with the play tests and the outputs, that's when we pushed it to print. And yeah, it's an iterative process. But again, in this, if you bring in ego and selfishness, then it spoils the entire formula. So
Yeah.
if you're like, oh, I should be getting the credit, I should be the person, they should be saying, oh, Phalgun designed this, Phalgun did that. That is a disaster. So it's actually a team effort to get a product out. And the moment you get selfish about the outputs,
Yes.
goes
Very well
down.
said, because this is that, like, you created Saigaram for one thing, but what people are learning out of it each time they play could be hundreds of things. You cannot go and stop them from saying, "Hey, don't do it this way. Don't learn these things because I did not design the game for this." It's open for everybody to learn. Goes back to the first question that we had, right? Arunaji was asking, what is it that makes games so interesting and involving for people to play? Because that is where we get a lot of chances to go back and redo the whole thing and figure out what works best and keep acing your game and getting better.
Yeah,
In life, if you go do the same thing, you don't get a second chance. You've done,
exactly.
you said it. You made this move, you face the consequence. But in games, you keep going back, play it 100 times, you learn 100 different things, and then you figure it out and saying, this is what should be done. And
I learned this very interesting thing, Bharat, whatever you said, when I was talking to a bunch of kids. So we had a summer camp in our board game bazaar.
Mhm.
They were all 9, 10-year-olds who came and played games, and it was just our way of getting exposure, and I mean marketing, and also kids getting the exposure to 40 games.
Yeah.
I was blown away with the thought process. So they were playing, they were having a blast, and some of the kids were fantastic at some games. Some kids who were lagging behind in a few games were fantastic in other games, you
Absolutely.
know, because there are infinite games where you can actually play and
Yeah.
check where your skills are, what your favorite mechanics are. So I asked a simple question to one of them. He was a super introvert. Okay,
Mhm.
his answers would be to the dot. If I say, "Hey, how are you? Long time no see," and he'll be like, "Yes, that's it." Right? Those are the kind of answers he would give. So one day I saw this guy winning really, I mean, it's one of these really complex games. I asked him, how did you figure it out? You
Mhm.
just learned the game now. How did you figure it out that this is the way to play?
Mhm.
He said, when I was learning the game, I kept thinking about how to win.
Mhm.
What are the things which will help me win? And what are all the things which are just operational things in the game?
Mhm.
Right? Some of the things which will take you one step forward, two step forward, 10 steps forward,
Mhm.
right? Uh, some of the things which will accelerate your score and things like that, right? He figured out what are those gold mines in this game hidden,
Mhm.
and he picked that up and he just worked towards it.
Yes. objective in mind.
I was blown away when he said something like, I figure out what are the things which will help me win, and then I play. I'm like, wow. A lot of people just play for the sake of playing,
Yeah,
right? They're like, oh, I'll just figure it out while I'm playing. It's like, I'm just
right.
having fun.
This is what it is, right? Children, especially, they pick up things that we are surprised to, because we are all coming from a conditioning to say, okay, this is how we need to do it.
100%.
They figure it out, and that is something that we also see, right? You were mentioning that people. She was asking whether we are using these games to teach people outside in the West. It's happening at home, Maradaji. I think it's time that we stop looking at outside to say, is this done outside and I want to do it here. People in India, they're hitting the goals. We are the ones who are top there. Our children here, I mean, just to talk about one of the things that's happening as we speak, we have a program called Teach to Learn, where our kids are creating games to go teach concept of science and math, not to other children, but to teachers of schools.
Wow.
And I mean, we had a big event that happened in Hospet, where
Oh, yeah, I saw a snippet
yeah.
of it. Mind
So
blowing.
they created games to teach curriculum academic subjects to first-time school-going children, and that is where they have this whole thing going on. They're teaching people how to learn through games. Kids are creating it. Indian kids are creating it. Forget the West. I think we should start seeing
No,
what
I
we.
think the most important things in games is, especially when we are talking about children, right?
Yeah.
It's very important for them to slow down. They're so high on energy and they're hyper, and when they actually play a game, I have seen people who are diagnosed for ADHD
Yes.
spending 7 hours playing a game, not looking at the phone,
Yeah.
right? And I have seen how it slows down. This was in a lesson which I'd learned in photography as well. One of my mentors was like, wherever you go, carry a tripod. I was like, why? He said it slows you down.
Mm. Yes.
You'll start noticing a lot more things and it relaxes you. I keep saying this, gaming is like yoga for your brain. You, in fact, feel so fresh at the end of the game. I don't think that muscle of yours is ever worked up, especially the left and right brains,
Yeah.
right?
True.
So,
And
yeah, it's
true.
a great opportunity.
The talk
And more importantly, create memories at the
yes.
table.
And we talk about left brain, right brain, also about creativity, right? Is it something that we are born with? Is it a skill to develop? Uh, You should see the kids playing at home and they start learning how to walk. They create a game out of anything that is available at them,
Yeah,
right?
they find a lota, they'll make a game out
Yeah,
of it.
they create a game, and we have the creativity inherently with us. And at least Indian children, because we have so much of stories to tell, so many
Exactly.
things to expose and talk about. It's a beautiful thing. And it's not like a skill that is something that is to be nurtured from outside. It is something that we have.
I'm
Some,
proud to say that 2024 and 2025 has been a great year for the Indian ecosystem when it comes to tabletop games.
yeah,
There are so many publishers, Indian designers who are quitting their jobs and starting, this. In fact, when you come to TTOX, you'll see 300 plus games, and every day there is a new game designer, new cafe being open, new board game meetup happening somewhere in Manipur. I'm just totally blown away right now. The ecosystem is growing by itself organically, and we are just catalysts now.
yes,
So, yeah, I mean, today I think Gen Alpha, especially, I feel the next 10 years, they can only perfect all skills that they have by playing games. It's the easiest accessible thing. And you're learning bouncing off ideas from other kids at the table, right? They're like, next time I'll be like, hey, I'll use your strategy, right? They're
absolutely.
learning.
The learning
Do
is happening.
this,
Yes, yeah,
if they didn't do this game, I mean, play this game, they would have never figured it out, right?
absolutely.
So bouncing off ideas and learning from other people is also a great opportunity to learn.
Yeah. So that's what gaming does. That's what we are trying to also make our children do. And as you mentioned, TTOX is going to be a big event where a lot of gamers are coming. We will be there as Leela Gurukulam as well, because Mindscape methodology that we use for teaching any concept
I
could
am super honored and grateful that you guys are coming. You missed the last tea talks and have been extremely angry with everybody at Leela Gurukulam. This time you are coming and making,
we had a big event happening here.
yeah, you
So
have a massive space. We have, I can't wait for you guys to be there. And the talks that are lined up as well are so good. Um, and people are coming from across the world, they're coming from Malaysia, US. Last time we had people from Australia.
Yes.
So yeah, we are making a mark, and a lot of international people are also learning from how Indians are using games. In fact, Indian schools are using games in the curriculum. So I'm very excited about it.
We'll see you there. We'll all be there. So thanks a lot for spending this time. A lot
Yep.
of insights, beautiful stories. And yeah,
We can go on, man. I mean, there's so
yeah, I
many
know.
things to touch
Then,
upon.
then we'll talk about games at a separate. Like it's like playing a
Yeah,
game, right? You'll never
exactly.
go, you'll never want to stop.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah.
you're a game designer yourself, so I know I have seen your design skills.
Yes,
So
that was also another question that you were asked. Like, can somebody learn how to design a game? We learned it over 1 hour session that day. So
yeah,
you told us what are the things that goes into it and how to
replayability,
create a
player
game.
interaction. Yeah,
So,
correct. It was fun. Awesome.
yes, thanks a lot.
Everybody's saying yay for TTOX.
This time we will be there. I'm
Yeah,
there.
I'm so excited. I mean, now that the whole war, ceasefire thing is agreed upon, I'm even more excited. So,
Yes,
yep.
perfect. Thanks a lot.
Yes, thank
Uh,
you. Hope to see everyone at TTOX. Pick up a game. There are so many games out there. And start building a collection of your own,
if you're
because
in
the
Bangalore, you should
shelf life
definitely.
is infinite.
Yes.
So,
If
yeah.
you're not at Bangalore, uh, you can leave a link as a message here, Phalgun, for people to pick up any game that you have designed, some of the amazing ones. So if you're in
Oh yeah,
Bangalore, please do come to TTOX because you'll see
yeah.
them in
That's the
person.
better place. Yeah, there are infinite number of games there.
Yes.
All right.
Right. See you. Have
So,
a good night.
yep. Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Bye.
It was great conversing with you, Bharat. I think this is the longest I have spoken to you in the last 3 years
Was
of
perfect
knowing
as
you.
the met in person, but we had to do it virtually. Right.
Yeah, but I'm glad. Thanks so much for the opportunity for, allowing me to talk about games and geeking out about games.
Enjoyed it. Enjoyed
Yeah.
it. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you so much. Bye bye.